The iron wind hurtled forward like a wounded predator, engines shrieking as Marcus forced it into a headlong charge. The crew clung to their stations, some bleeding, all terrified. Ahead, the blood fangs swelled across the viewport, an iron fortress, bristling with cannons, its hull carved with the scars of countless raids. Carvek's flagship was death incarnate. Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. "Target their core batteries. Fire everything we've got." Missiles spat from the racks, streaking into the void. A handful struck true, blasting holes into the raider line. But most were intercepted, vaporized before they reached their mark. The enemy had numbers and firepower. Marcus only had desperation. The Bloodfang answered with a barrage. Beams of plasma slammed into the iron wind, tearing whole decks apart. Bulkheads screamed, flames erupted, crew were hurled across corridors as pressure seals failed. Juno clung to her console, her face pale. "We can't take another hit!" Marcus ground his teeth, refusing to look away from the glowing monster in front of him. "We don't need to take another hit. We just need to reach them." In the medbay, the sisters swayed as the ship rocked. Lyra clutched her chest, her glow flickering weakly. "We can't hold this, Sarai. They'll kill us all." Sarai's gaze burned hotter, her expression grim. "Unless we end it." She stood, her presence filling the room like a star waking. The walls vibrated, loose tools lifted into the air. Lyra grabbed her arm in panic. "If you open yourself, you won't come back." Sarai met her sister's eyes, her voice calm, resigned. "Better to burn once than to be caged forever." Lyra shook her head, tears glowing in her eyes. "No, not alone." She stood beside her, trembling but unyielding. "If we do this, we do it together." On the bridge, alarms shrieked as the Bloodfang's cannons charged for a killing shot. Marcus's console flared red, impact imminent. He slammed his palm against the screen. "Sarai, Lyra, if you've got anything left, now's the time." Silence answered for a heartbeat. Then the deck blazed with light. The sisters walked onto the bridge, their bodies no longer fully flesh. Their skin shimmered like liquid silver, their eyes burning. So bright Marcus had to squint against the glare. Energy rippled off them in waves, bending light, warping gravity. Marcus stared, breath caught in his throat. "God help us!" Sarai raised her hands. Lyra mirrored her. Together they became a conduit. The air tore open, raw power spilling out like the birth of a star. Outside, the void erupted. Raider ships buckled as invisible pressure crushed them. Flat. Fighters shattered mid-flight, imploding in brilliant flashes. The Bloodfang's shields collapsed instantly, its vast hull groaning as its spine twisted under forces no machine could endure. Carvek's voice roared over the comms, full of rage and awe. "Yes, this is the power I sought. Unleash it all. Burn this galaxy clean." But the sisters didn't answer. Their light swelled, drowning his words, drowning everything. Marcus shielded his crew with the last fragments of the Iron Wind's energy field, bracing against the storm. The deck rattled, systems overloaded, flames sparked, but still he held on. He refused to bow, refused to abandon the sisters as they gave their all. The Bloodfang split down the middle, torn apart as though by a giant's hands. Its reactor imploded, the shock wave scattering the remaining raiders like leaves in a hurricane. One by one, their ships detonated, their screams swallowed by the silence of space. The sisters' bodies dissolved further, their outlines fading, their voices a twin, echo in Marcus's mind. "Thank you for letting us be free." Then came the final burst. Light consumed the battlefield. The shattered moon ignited, its fragments fusing under impossible heat into a newborn star. For a moment, night became day across the sector, a beacon of sacrifice blazing against the dark. When the glare faded, silence reigned. The raider fleet was gone, reduced to debris orbiting the new sun. The Iron Wind drifted, scarred and broken, its systems fried but alive. Marcus slumped against his chair, blood running down his arm from shrapnel wounds. Around him, the crew stared at the viewport in stunned silence. Where the blood fang once ruled, only light remained. Juno whispered, her voice trembling. They did it. Marcus's throat tightened. He looked at the newborn star, its glow steady, eternal. The sisters were gone, their sacrifice written across the sky itself. He forced his voice steady, though it broke at the edges. No, we did it together. But inside he knew the truth. He had unleashed them, and they had chosen to save him anyway. The price was terrible, but humanity still lived, and for Marcus, that was enough. The battlefield was silent. No more alarms, no more cannon fire, no more screams. Only wreckage drifted, twisted raider hulls tumbling endlessly around the glowing sphere of the newborn star. What had once been a graveyard moon was now a blazing beacon, its light cutting through the darkness of the border sectors. The Iron Wind floated crippled in orbit, hull cracked, decks scorched. Half its systems were dead, the rest clinging to. Life by frayed wires and sheer will. Marcus sat slumped in the captain's chair, his uniform torn and blood-soaked. Every muscle ached, but his eyes stayed locked on the viewport, where the star burned like a memorial flame. Crew moved quietly around him, tending to the wounded, sealing ruptures, salvaging what little power remained. No one spoke of retreat or surrender. They had survived, and that was miracle enough. Juno limped to his side, her arm in a makeshift sling. She stared at the light outside, her voice soft, reverent. It's beautiful, like they left a piece of themselves behind. Marcus nodded faintly. He felt it too. The sisters weren't gone. They had become this, an eternal fire, a warning and a gift. Their sacrifice had carved itself into the sky. The comm crackled weakly. A voice, one of the surviving crew from engineering, asked, Captain, what now? Raiders are scattered, but others will come. News of this will spread. Marcus straightened, ignoring the pain tearing through his ribs. Then we spread the story first. Let the galaxy know what happened here. That raiders burned, that two sisters lit the stars with their lives, and that humanity stood with them when no one else would. He rose slowly from the chair, each step heavy but deliberate. On the deck, his crew turned to him, eyes hollow with exhaustion, yet burning with pride. They waited, needing his words, his certainty. He drew a breath, steady and strong. Remember, this day, not for me, not for the Iron Wind. Remember it for Sarai and Lyra, the ones who gave us a chance. They weren't monsters. They weren't weapons. They were people who chose freedom over chains and sacrifice over surrender. His voice hardened. And we will honor that. Humanity doesn't bow. Not to raiders, not to fear, not to the dark. A murmur swept through the survivors. Agreement, quiet, but growing. For a crew beaten bloody, those words were steel. Outside, the newborn star cast its glow across the wreckage. The light caught the torn hull of the Iron Wind, painting the scars in gold, as if the sisters themselves were keeping watch. Marcus turned back to the viewport. His thoughts lingered on the moment. Their voices had echoed in his mind, the warmth of their touch, even as their forms dissolved. He wondered if they had known him better than he had known himself. If their sacrifice had been made not just for freedom, but for trust in him, in humanity. The silence broke as Juno whispered almost to herself, They'll write songs about this. Legends. Marcus shook his head. Not legends. Warnings, proof. The galaxy will know humanity doesn't run. When we make a stand, even the stars change. His gaze stayed locked on the light until his vision blurred from exhaustion. Somewhere deep inside, grief gnawed at him, the weight of lives lost, the sister's absence like a wound. But over it all sat pride. He had made the impossible choice and walked away alive. More importantly, he had kept his crew alive. That mattered most. Hours passed. Repairs limped along. The Iron Wind began its crawl out of the system, engines flickering but functional. Behind them, the star burned brighter than any beacon could. Raiders would think twice before crossing into that sector again, not because of fear of weapons or fleets, but because of the memory of what had happened here. Marcus settled back in his chair, finally allowing his body to relax. His last thought before sleep claimed him was simple, heavy with truth. Sacrifice had given humanity another day, and another day was always enough. The void was alive with danger the moment Captain Marcus Hale cut power to the Iron Wind's drives and coasted past the abandoned outpost. What should have been a dead hulk, a relic of the old mining wars, pulsed faintly with life. A distress signal, weak, almost lost under layers of static, echoed into his sensors. Marcus had spent years in the borderlands, hauling freight through pirate-ridden sectors. He'd learned long ago that distress signals were usually bait. Yet, something about this one was different. It wasn't automated. It carried a rhythm, a heartbeat almost, like someone trapped and desperate. Against every instinct that told him to burn fuel and leave, he ordered his ship closer. The outpost was gutted, its walls torn open as though something had clawed it from the inside. He docked anyway, rifle in hand, helmet sealed. The air inside was foul, metallic with the stench of rust and old blood. Emergency lights flickered like dying stars, guiding him deeper until he found the source. A sealed chamber, its glass frosted over with ice. Two shapes floated inside, tall, slender forms suspended in cryogenic sleep. At first glance, they could have been human. But their skin shimmered faint silver even under the failing lights, and their hair drifted around their faces like strands of starlight. Alien and young, perhaps barely out of whatever passed for adolescence in their species. The console nearby still pulsed with weak power. The display screamed in alien glyphs Marcus didn't recognize, but the meaning was obvious. Containment. A warning. The sisters' eyes twitched beneath closed lids. They were alive. Marcus should have walked away. He should have called it in, left it for the Union authorities, or even scavengers. But their faces, so strangely familiar in their fragility, stirred something in him. He'd buried too many innocents during his time as a Marine. He wouldn't let two more die alone in the dark. With a grunt, he smashed the stasis lock with the butt of his rifle. The glass hissed open. Cold vapor spilled across the floor. The first alien gasped awake, glowing eyes snapping wide, and the second followed moments later. They clutched each other, trembling, their voices a blend of tones that rang both musical and broken. "Please, help us," one whispered, her words fractured by translation lag in his helmet. That was all Marcus needed. He led them back through the broken corridors, his instincts screaming at every shadow. Something about this was wrong. Too easy. But he pushed forward, shoving aside doubt until the Iron Wind's airlock sealed behind them. He barely had time to set foot on his bridge when alarms blared. Juno, his first officer, spun in her chair. "Captain, raiders dropping out of warp. A dozen ships. No, more. They're hailing us." Marcus's blood went cold. Raiders were merciless, scavengers who ruled the border sectors like predators. They didn't show up in force unless the prize was worth it. His eyes flicked to the sisters huddled in the medbay. "Put them through," he growled. The screen filled with the scarred face of Warlord Karvek, a raider whose cruelty was whispered across half the quadrant. His smile was all teeth. "Human, you've picked up something that doesn't belong to you. Hand the sisters over, and I might let you live." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. He remembered the chamber, the warning glyphs, the fear in the sisters' eyes. Maybe Karvek had a reason to want them locked away. Maybe Marcus had just unleashed something dangerous. But he'd made his choice. He had freed them. That meant they were under his protection. He leaned forward, voice low and iron hard. "Not happening." Karvek's smile vanished. "Then your ship will be nothing but ash." The comm cut out. A heartbeat later, the stars lit up with the glow of raider cannons. The siege began in a fury of fire. The iron wind shuddered under impact, warning klaxons screaming, crew scrambling to stations. Marcus gripped the helm himself, pushing the ship harder than its old frame could take. Missiles streaked past. Plasma bolts grazed their shields. But what cut deepest was not the barrage outside. It was the sound of the younger sister's quiet sobbing through the medbay feed, her glowing eyes full of fear. Marcus had seen that look before. The look of people who'd spent their lives imprisoned, never knowing freedom, suddenly thrown into a world even harsher. He clenched his jaw. Whatever they were, whatever secret they carried, no raider bastard was going to drag them back into chains. He had fought wars for his own kind. He could fight this one for them, too. "Hold tight," he muttered to his crew. "We're not going down today." The iron wind surged into the chaos, engines screaming as Marcus punched straight through the tightening noose of raiders. He didn't know how long they could last. He didn't know what the sisters truly were. All he knew was simple. He had chosen to save them. Now he would have to survive the storm that choice unleashed. The iron wind howled through space, battered shields flaring as raider fire rained down. Each blast slammed against the freighter's hull, shaking the deck beneath Marcus's boots. The ship was old, a workhorse never meant for war, but tonight it had no choice. "Shields at 30%. Juno shouted over the alarms. Her hands flew across the console, rerouting failing circuits. "Hold them together!" Marcus barked, sweat stinging his eyes. The radar filled with red blips. Raider ships swarmed like a pack of wolves, sleek and fast, designed to tear apart prey like his. They circled wide, pushing him toward their trap. "Thrusters overloaded," the engineer called out from below decks. "We can't take this chase much longer." Marcus ignored the warning. He had always believed that survival came down to nerve. Who risked more? Who kept their eyes open when everyone else blinked? His jaw tightened. "Punch through their line. If we die moving forward." He rammed the throttle. The iron wind screamed, engines burning hotter than safety allowed. The ship lunged between two raider frigates. Plasma fire grazed the hull, melting armor, but Marcus kept steady hands. A missile lock shrieked. He flipped the freighter into a roll, letting the warhead overshoot and detonate against one of the raiders instead. For a brief moment, the void lit up with wreckage. The crew cheered, but it didn't last. More raiders surged from the shadows, their formation tightening like a net. Inside the medbay, the sisters clung together. Lyra, the younger, trembled, eyes wide as the ship shook under each hit. "They won't stop. They'll tear this ship apart until nothing is left." Sarai, the elder, pressed a glowing hand against the wall, as though feeling the vibrations of each blast. Her voice was calmer but no less heavy. "They don't care about the ship. They only want us." "Why?" Lyra's voice cracked. "Because we are what they fear, and what they hunger for." Sarai's gaze turned sharp, haunted. She didn't explain further. Back on the bridge, Marcus swerved between jagged chunks of asteroid debris, forcing the raiders to split their formation. Some ships clipped rocks and spiraled into fire, but most kept pace. "Captain, they're hurting us," Juno's voice cut through. "They're pushing us toward the Bloodfang sector." Marcus cursed under his breath. Karvek's flagship, a predator waiting for the kill. He slammed a fist against the console. "Not today." He veered hard, left, aiming for a narrow fissure in a massive asteroid. "Hold steady!" The iron wind slipped through, hull scraping stone. Raiders followed, but their larger ships struggled to match his reckless maneuver. One smashed against the rock wall, erupting in fire. Another clipped its wing and spun off into darkness. But even as he gained ground, Marcus knew the truth. This wasn't escape. This was stalling. They had more ships, more fuel, more guns. All he had was a freighter full of terrified crew and 2 aliens who had somehow become the galaxy's most valuable prize. Juno turned toward him, sweat glistening on her brow. "Captain, why do they want them so badly? What are they?" Marcus thought of the med bay, of silver skin glowing like fireflies in the dark, of eyes that seemed too bright, too alive. He didn't know the answer, and he wasn't sure he wanted to. The comm crackled alive. Carvek's voice filled the bridge, dripping venom. "Run, little human, run until your engines burn. Every second you delay only makes the hunt sweeter. But when you're finished, the sisters will be mine." Marcus killed the feed. He wouldn't give the bastard the satisfaction. He leaned into the helm, his voice a growl. "We're not finished yet." The freighter burst free of the asteroid. Field, engines leaving trails of fire. Raiders regrouped behind, still in pursuit. Ahead, the shattered moon loomed, a husk split open by ancient wars, its jagged fragments drifting like broken teeth. Marcus aimed for it. "Hide us in the wreckage," he ordered. "Kill the lights, mask the drive signature. Maybe we can buy a few minutes." The crew worked frantically. As the iron wind drifted into the moon's shadow, systems powered down one by one. Darkness swallowed the ship, leaving only the ragged sound of breathing and the faint hum of failing shields. Outside, the raiders spread out searching. Their lights swept across the wreckage like hunters with torches. Marcus stood from his chair and looked toward the medbay camera. The sisters sat huddled, their faces pale and anxious. Sarai caught his gaze through the lens as though she knew. He was watching. Her eyes glowed brighter in the dark, almost accusing, almost pleading. Marcus whispered to himself, unheard by anyone else. "What the hell did I just bring aboard my ship?" The silence didn't last. Raiders were closing in. Again. The chase wasn't over, it was only tightening. The iron wind drifted in the shadow of the broken moon, its engines silenced, its crew whispering like soldiers in a trench. Raiders prowled outside, their searchlights sweeping the wreckage. The silence on the bridge was crushing, broken only by the crackle of sparking wires. Marcus stood rigid at the helm. He wasn't the type to freeze, but something about this situation gnawed at him. He had seen impossible odds before, but this was different. Raiders didn't risk entire. Fleets for random prizes. Whatever the sisters were, they weren't cargo. He slammed a hand on the console. "Juno, keep us dark. If they sniff us out, we'll burn what's left of our engines. I need answers." He stormed down the corridor toward the medbay, boots pounding against the steel deck. The emergency lights flickered as he entered, painting the sisters in alternating shadows and pale glow. They sat together on the cot, their hands interlaced, their eyes fixed on him the moment he stepped inside. "Talk," Marcus snapped. His voice wasn't cruel, but it cut like steel. "I need to know why they're willing to tear apart half a system for you." Lyra shrank back, trembling, her glow dimming. But Sarai met his glare head-on, her molten eyes steady, unblinking. "You should not have freed us," she said simply. The words hit like a blade. Marcus leaned closer. "I don't regret saving you, but I won't risk my crew for a mystery. What are you?" For a long moment, Sarai said nothing. The silence stretched, the hum of the ship vibrating in the walls like a heartbeat. Then she lifted her hand. The air around her shimmered, warping as though gravity itself bent. A tray of instruments on the counter rattled, lifted, then crushed into a ball of twisted metal. Marcus froze. His instincts screamed danger, but he held firm, refusing to step back. Lyra whimpered, clutching her sister's arm. "Don't, please." Sarai lowered her hand. The crushed metal clattered to the floor. Her gaze softened, though it carried sorrow. We were not meant to walk free. We were born as weapons, not children. Our kind was hidden, locked away by those who feared what we might become. The Raiders do not want us for who we are. They want what we can do. Marcus's throat tightened. You're saying you're living warheads? Sarai nodded slowly. Energy bound in flesh, stars given shape. Even our presence is dangerous. That outpost was not a prison. It was a vault. Lyra's voice cracked. We didn't choose this. We never asked to be born. This way. Marcus exhaled sharply, dragging a hand over his face. The warning glyphs on the stasis chamber made sense now. Not containment for safety, containment for survival. If the sisters unleashed themselves fully, fleets wouldn't just fall, they'd vanish. On the bridge, Juno's voice cut in through the intercom, urgent. Captain, they've picked up trace radiation. Raiders are converging on our position. We're out of time. Marcus's eyes darted between the sisters. Every instinct screamed that keeping them aboard was madness. But abandoning them now meant handing them over to Karvek, and that would doom far more than the Iron Wind. He crouched in front of them, meeting their alien stares with the same iron. Steadiness he gave his soldiers years ago. Then you'll fight with us. If you're weapons, aim yourselves at the bastards outside. I'll handle the rest. Lyra's hands shook. If we fight, people will die. Marcus bared his teeth. People are already dying. The only choice we've got left is who lives with what's left after. The ship rocked violently, pulling them against the walls. Raiders were firing again. Warning sirens screamed across the deck. Marcus snapped to his feet, rifle slung over his shoulder. Stay behind me if you won't fight, but don't slow me down. He stormed back toward the bridge, blood pounding in his ears. His crew's eyes were wide as he returned, sparks dancing from the ceiling. Captain? Juno asked, reading his face. Marcus dropped into the helm, his jaw set like iron. We're not just running anymore. We're going to make them bleed. Behind him, in the medbay, Sarai rose slowly, her eyes glowing brighter, brighter still, like suns trying to break free from flesh. Lyra clutched her arm, whispering her name, but Sarai didn't look away from the deck ceiling, where the shadow of raider ships passed. The secrets were out. There was no turning back. The hunters knew exactly where their prey was, and Marcus, hale, fool, or hero, had just decided to unleash the storm. The raiders struck like a storm. Dozens of vessels dropped from warp, engines burning hot, weapons already primed. They fanned out around the shattered moon, boxing the Iron Wind into a cage of fire. At their center loomed the Bloodfang, Karvek's monstrous flagship, its jagged hull glowing red from reactor heat, like a beast forged from iron and flame. Marcus stood on the bridge, jaw set, watching the trap close. So be it, he muttered. If they want to fight, they'll choke on it. Captain, we don't have the guns for this, Juno snapped. She wasn't wrong. The Iron Wind was a freighter with a few defensive turrets and an old missile rack. Against a fleet, it was a knife at a gunfight. Marcus leaned over the console, voice iron. Then we use the knife where it hurts. The order was given. Missiles, launched in rapid succession, streaking toward the nearest raider carriers. Explosions bloomed in the void, one ship cracking open like a tin can. The crew cheered, but their joy died quick as fresh volleys slammed into their shields. Shields down to 20%, the engineer roared through comms. Boarding hooks incoming, Juno cried. The deck shuddered as steel claws latched onto the hull, dragging enemy craft close. Sparks rained down as corridors groaned under the strain. Marcus grabbed his rifle from the weapons locker. All hands, repel boarders! The ship erupted into chaos. Raiders swarmed through airlocks, armored brutes with plasma rifles and blades, dripping venom. The Iron Wind's corridors became killing fields. Marcus led the defense himself, firing bursts into the invaders, kicking one raider back into an airlock and slamming the release. The bastard's scream cut off as the void claimed him. Crew members fought tooth and nail. Some went down screaming, others dragged wounded comrades to safety. The air filled with smoke, blood, and the shriek of alarms. In the medbay, the sisters moved like wraiths. Raiders who rushed them found their weapons twisted mid-shot, barrels bending as though crushed by invisible hands. Others staggered, armor caving inward, bones snapping under unseen pressure. Lyra flinched at every kill, tears streaking her face. Sarai, however, advanced without hesitation, her glow blazing brighter with each motion. On the bridge, Juno held, her ground blasting raiders with a sidearm as Marcus returned, his rifle barrel steaming. "We can't hold this forever," she gasped. Marcus's eyes flicked to the viewport. The blood fang was shifting closer, its shadow swallowing the stars. Karvek wanted to end this himself. The deck shuddered again. Another wave of raiders poured. In, roaring war cries. Marcus barked, "Fall back to choke points, don't give them open ground." His crew scrambled, sealing bulkheads, turning corridors into narrow kill zones. Grenades boomed, shrapnel tearing through steel and flesh alike. Then Sarai appeared at Marcus's side, her presence like standing near a live reactor. She raised her hand, and a whole squad of raiders froze mid-charge. Their weapons crumpled, their bodies convulsed, and then silence. They collapsed like broken dolls. Marcus stared, both grateful and unsettled. "Remind me never to piss you off." Sarai's voice was calm, too calm. "This is what they made us for." Lyra stumbled in behind her, clutching her chest. "Stop! You're burning too much!" But Sarai didn't listen. Her glow only grew. On the other side of the void, Karvek's laughter echoed through the comms. "Do you see it, human? Do you see why we want them? They are storms given flesh, and storms cannot be caged forever." Marcus cut the feed with a snarl. "Maybe not, but storms can still drown you." The bridge shook violently. Warning lights screamed. Hull breaches on multiple decks. Crew shouted for help, their cries overlapping. The Iron Wind was bleeding. Out. And the raiders knew it. Marcus slammed a fist on the console. "We can't just defend. We'll be crushed. We need to hit them where it hurts." Juno's eyes widened. "You're not saying—" "Yes," Marcus snapped. "We go for the blood fang. Kill the head, the body scatters. A dangerous gamble, a suicide run." But Marcus had never been one for safe bets. He strapped into the helm, hands steady despite the chaos. "All power to forward drives. Ram us straight through their lines. If we're going down, we're taking that bastard with us." The engines roared. The Iron Wind surged forward, battered, bleeding, but unyielding. Raiders scrambled to intercept, but Marcus wove through their fire like a fighter ace, the sisters' glow flickering behind him like guardian flames.